Hey, buddy, watch this.
Hello, Regis Kilvin is the name, Heroes of the Storm is the game, and this is my first look at the brand new warrior hero, Dehaka. He just entered the Nexus today, specifically in the public test realm, so I haven't had a chance to play him yet. You're going to join me for my very first impressions of the hero. So hopefully we can learn how his trait, his mount mechanic, how his basic and heroic abilities work, maybe take a detailed look at each of his talents, and perhaps even get an idea for the general strategy and play style of this hero. So before we do anything else, let's take a look at Dehaka's trait called Essence Collection. This has a 1 second cooldown. It can be activated using the D key. And it's got a passive effect too. You gain 10 essence from takedowns and 2 essence from nearby minions dying. And then you can activate this talent, or this trait, excuse me, to consume all those essences you've collected and heal yourself for 64 health over 5 seconds for each essence stored. That's a maximum of 50 essence, and this can be cast during your Q and your E abilities as well, so that's pretty nifty. So let's take some damage. We've already got 50 essence collected here. I just want to show you how big this heal can be. Keep in mind we're at level 20. So this is a late game type of scenario. Look how big this heal is when you have max essences. As you can see, it did something like 60% of our health very rapidly, right? And this thing reloads pretty quickly, particularly when you're getting takedowns in fights, and anytime you're clearing minion waves as well, so you can get smaller little chunk heals here and there, or that big heal anytime you get up to 50, which gives you a ton of extra sustain and makes Dehaka presumably a very difficult tank to take down in the heat of the moment, especially if he's got a healer alongside him. You'll note his health pool is not too bad either, 5,400 almost at level 20. It's pretty solid. That's certainly enough to work with as a tank. It's not the biggest health pool in the game, but more than many of the bruiser type tanks as well. So enough to stay alive and give that 5 second heal time to work. So, and also I should note that it has a 1 second cooldown, so you can kind of spam it for smaller heals here and there, or use it for a big heal all at once after you've gotten to 50. It's really just going to be dependent upon the timing of the fight. I don't think you're often going to be waiting for 50, but some fights you'll have 50 right away, and you might actually be rewarded from using that more often in smaller chunks so that it's ready to go again next time. Instead of sitting on 50 stacks forever, you can sustain more consistently because it doesn't look like it stores over 50 stacks. So using it once it gets to 50, if you need a heal, seems like it's worth it. I should also discuss Dehaka's mount. He doesn't actually have a mount. He has an effect called Brush Stalker. This is his Z. For me, it's a V, but just ignore that. And that's just a personal preference for my hotkey. And this has a 40 second cooldown. It allows you to burrow to a bush on the battleground. So you can't actually mount up. When you hit your mount key, you'll get these little indicators of various bushes or vents across the battlefield. It says bush, but vents also work. And you will be able to virtually instantly travel there. Small channel time, and then another small channel time as you come out. But this gives you a lot of mobility around the battlefield. As far as uses for this are concerned, of course, you can use it just like Falset or Brightwing, who have a more global presence, and even Abbott, they're soaking lanes and then traveling to an objective right away. I think it's going to be great for ganks, setting up to instantly travel to a lane where no one was expecting you to be, particularly after just showing in a distant lane and grabbing somebody with perhaps your Q ability and securing that kill. And it just lets you get back into the fight faster too if you've died, which many tanks, of course, have a way to shorten their death timers. And this isn't much of one, but it does reduce your downtime at least a little bit. So that's nice as well. So let's go ahead and move on to his basic abilities now, starting off with his Q called Drag, 75 mana, 15 second cooldown. Relatively expensive and also pretty long cooldown there. Not as long as Stitches' hook necessarily, but still significant. And that reads, lash out with your tongue, dealing 351 damage to the first enemy hit, and dragging them with you for 1.75 seconds. Now, I will note that 351 damage is substantial at level 20. That's nothing to scoff at. It's not going to kill anybody usually, but it will add up, particularly because it looks like drag is going to be... that's a minion there. Let's get these minions out of the way so we can hit our skill shots, right? Arthas, come on. Okay, yeah. So it looks like the recipient of your drag is stunned for the full duration, and it's a very long duration. And you can move at a reduced rate while dragging, and it looks like you can only move backwards, which makes sense. I mean, I guess you can move in all directions, but you don't really drag them if you move in a direction that's a similar angle to them. So you gotta be careful there. But that's pretty cool. You can just reposition a hero while stunning them and creating a target for your team to easily coordinate against. That's a pretty fantastic ability. 1.75 seconds is a really long stun duration compared to many other stuns in the game. But I will note that the range on this is rather short. And it doesn't seem to me that Dehaka has a great way to engage in fights. In other words, he doesn't have like a diving ability where he can jump right into the enemy team. So he's going to have to kind of waddle up and cast his Q on a target, and it's a difficult skill shot to hit, it looks like, too. Rather narrow, really short, so a moving target's going to be difficult. It's going to be hard to make that work well. Perhaps with future abilities, it'll get easier. So let's go ahead and take a look at our W Dark Swarm. 50 mana, 9 seconds, much more reasonable on the resources there. Deals 132 damage per second to nearby enemies for 3 seconds. And you're able to move through units, so I guess your hit collision is gone while this is active. It deals double damage to heroes, so that's 264 damage per second for 3 seconds, so 600, about 780 damage if they stay in the swarm for the duration. So that's a lot, and it can be cast during your drag and your burrow as well. And there's the radius on that ability. It's not huge, but similar probably to Arthas' E. As we can see here, it's almost identical to Arthas' E. So let's, I want to test a couple things. I want to drag and cast it at the same time and see if a drag target is automatically within the radius of the W at all times. Can be cast during drag and burrow, but it seems that maybe Arthas has Relentless. He is reducing the duration of our stuns pretty significantly. But anyway, it looks like they will stay in the radius of your W throughout throughout drag's cast, which is nice. It can also be cast during burrow. We haven't gotten that far, but yeah, you can see that even when you're underground, it's still going to have an impact, which is really nice. That means you can hide for 2 seconds and do pretty substantial damage in an area around you. So I like the flexibility that it can be cast, kind of like Sonya's Whirlwind. You can do other stuff during Whirlwind to some extent, so that's pretty cool. Okay, let's move on to E, Burrow. 65 mana, long cooldown at 20 seconds. Burrow into the ground, entering stasis and becoming invulnerable for 2 seconds. There's the charge there. So this is kind of your duck and cover. I'm in a mess, and I need time for my D to work, so you can start your D and get that heal rolling while you're under there. You can also just kind of become a landmine here with your W as well. And you can also get ready for a gank, essentially, in a bush, or position yourself for a Q, and all kinds of fun stuff there with your burrow. So 20-second cooldown, that's interesting. I don't really see a ton of value in this ability right off the bat. I think I have to play with Dehaka some to suss out the uses for this. I mean, obviously it's great for avoiding damage. Like if Jaina is about to drop a blizzard on your face, you know, you can E and perhaps survive through the 2 waves of blizzards. So that's nice for tanking. You can make people waste burst. I think it's also going to have some synergy with your D, as I mentioned earlier. I will note that you cannot cancel this. You can't E out of it, so you're stuck. It's a hard commitment. That's probably worse than if you could cancel it. So keep that in mind. If you need to make an instant peel on a teammate or finish somebody off, you're going to be stuck in your burrow. You won't be able to move or chase or body block. So I think we'll see some synergies with our talents with E as well when we get there. So keep that in mind. But right now, it doesn't feel like the best ability in his kit. That said, let's go ahead and move on to Dehaka's talents, starting with level 1 and Enduring Swarm. Dark Swarm, that's our W, reduces the damage of the next 2 abilities made against you by 25%. So this is kind of a spell shield in a sense. Yeah, you'll see the spell shield popped up there. But does that only last for the duration? It's not clear to me from the animation that only lasts through the duration. Either way, I don't actually think that's that strong of a talent. Spell Shield's not all that popular. This one's conditional as well on a marginal cooldown. And we have other ways to avoid big-time damage as necessary with Burrow. So I don't really think that Enduring Swarm is going to be popular regardless of how it works. We also have Primal Aggression. Dark Swarm deals 100% bonus damage to minions and mercenaries. So that's kind of like a Johanna Knight Takes Pawn, which is a very strong talent. Wave Clear is incredibly valuable and even underrated in Heroes of the Storm. So I think Primal Aggression might actually be a good choice depending on what else we see. Also has synergy with your trait. You can gather essence a little bit faster by clearing waves on your own. If you're running to a team fight and you got to burn through a wave really fast to get to 50, Primal Aggression might allow you to do that. I actually want to see just how much damage this does at level 20 to a minion wave. I think the full duration will just shred this minion wave if I have to guess. Not exactly. Close. My positioning wasn't perfect, so it might actually, but still enough. Enough damage for sure. Moving on to Enhanced Agility. Collecting 50 Essence permanently increases your movement speed by 1.5% up to 15%. Wow. That's pretty intriguing. As I mentioned before, Dehaka doesn't really seem to have a way to hard engage on opponents. So movement speed's really nice. It also is going to make your Q a little bit easier to land because you can kind of run in. Allow you to keep up with people with your W to guarantee that damage goes off as well. So that's actually kind of intriguing. 15% movement speed is not a ton, but it could make a difference when body blocking, and it does look like Dehaka has a pretty large collision radius as well, so I think he's going to be a good body block hero. I like that. I think your movement speed will also apply while you're dragging someone, but that's not clear. If that's the case, it'll help you drag people closer to your allies. I think only time will tell. I don't know if I can set up that experiment right now, but something else to keep in mind. I kind of like that. Enhanced Agility makes sense to me. Moving on to Tissue Regeneration, the final talent at level 1. Collecting 50 Essence permanently increases your health regeneration by 5 up to 50. So that means you'd have to hit 50 Essence 10 times. I don't think that's going to be hard to do at all, especially since you're starting at level 1. So by the mid-game, you could really easily expect to have your health regeneration increased up to 50. And you'll note that right now at level 20 by default, it's 11. So it's going to be more than 5 times better. It's going to be up to 6107, I guess. Yep. That's a big difference. Healing 60 health per second is actually nothing to scoff at all. You know, in just 5 seconds, it's 300 health. So that might be good as well. Regeneration talents are always good on tanks anyway. Just make sure you're always topped off and have a little bit extra healing in the middle of a fight. So I'm torn. I can see 3 talents here that all look pretty good. I still don't think Enduring Swarm is it, but all 3 of these make some sense to me. I'm going to choose Tissue Regeneration for now, just to see. So let's move on to level 4. Lurker Strain. Burrow grants stealth for 5 seconds. I want to see this. So yeah, we're stealthed both as we're burrowed and when we come out of the burrow. That's cool. That's fun. Could help you engage a little, but I think stealth gimmicks are underrated. I mean, overrated. Not helpful, particularly with a hero like this. So I don't really see Lurker Strain taking off. There's also Numbing Eruption emerging from Burrow knocks nearby enemy heroes or nearby enemies back and slows them by 30% for 2 seconds. Okay, so let's actually see that in action as well. Maybe we can see this on the dummy here. Might have not ranged there. He may also just not move. Well, we saw the impact. He had a little swirl there that he'd been affected. But let's see this on Arthas if we can. I think the problem with this talent is going to be emphasized pretty quickly here is that no one's going to stand on your... Well, Arthas bot did. That's a nice knockback. And I guess you could essentially go basically park yourself in front of a gate, and when you come out of stasis, knock back someone who's trying to flee. But the problem, as I mentioned before, you can't activate that or cancel that E, so this is going to be on a 2-second timer no matter what you do, which is going to make it very hard to hit and pretty unreliable. This feels like a low impact talent to me, unless I'm missing some advantage from it. I don't think it's any good. So what about one who collects? Increase essence collected from minions by 50%. You right now get 2, so I guess that means you'll get 3 per minion. It seems to me that essence collection is not going to be that difficult. So I don't really think speeding it up is going to be that helpful, particularly not from minions, because in the late game you're not going to be killing minions all the time, and it won't help you in team fights at all. Also, Hero Stalker. Increased essence gain from takedowns by 150%. I don't like that either. I still think if you're already getting takedowns in a team fight when you're going to need this heal, that it's kind of a win more talent that gives you, it'll give you 15. No, it increases it by 150%. So increases it by 15, so you get 25 essence. That's actually a lot. Just one takedown could give you a heal. And this will be occurring at level 4, so could provide you some early game sustain and could stack really nicely into the late game if you get 1 or 2 kills. Just steamroll people, particularly like on a core race. So maybe Hero Stalker is actually good. I like the idea of the CC from Numbing Eruption. I just think it's going to be too unreliable to hit it. I don't think stealth is particularly helpful, and one who collects just seems too slow in the late game. So maybe Hero Stalker is the choice for me. So far I've got 2 kind of regen talents. So moving on to level 7 with Feeding Frenzy. Basic attacks reduce drag's cooldown by 1.5 seconds. I kind of like that. This has a 15-second cooldown. It's such an impactful ability. So here we can see the cooldown gets shredded pretty quickly. I like that. That's pretty neat. The target dummy does not buy into drag at all. That could be really good. I like Feeding Frenzy. I think being able to use your drag more often is going to be nice. Particularly because I think people want drag to be like a fight initiator where you run in and you grab somebody and you pull them back to your team. I think what's really going to happen more often is that you're going to be embroiled in a team fight with like a couple people around you, and you kind of use this use your drag in the middle of a team fight and either reposition somebody or pull their tank out of the way, grab a morale ace and bring her forward, that kind of stuff. So being able to use it maybe twice in a team fight instead of once or even 3 times could be important. So Feeding Frenzy might be pretty good.
Choose a talent.
Let's see what else we got. Constriction increases drag's duration by 0.5 seconds. That's also pretty good. That would take it up to 2.25. And just let you pull people around a little farther, get them deeper out of position. I like that too. I need to take Dehaka into a game to see how easy it is to hit your Q and how easy it is to hit the right targets, and whether it tends to happen at the beginning of fights, if you can isolate people, because those kinds of questions and the answers to those questions will define to me which of these talents feels better in a game. So it's hard to say right now, but I do think they both have potential. Moving on to Symbiosis. Every time Dark Swarm damages an enemy hero, you reduce its cooldown by 0.5 seconds. So let's see that in action. This has a 9-second cooldown right away. And I think it hits, yeah, it hits twice per second. So it actually could hit a hero 6 times. A single hero, you saw how quickly actually the cooldown is reduced from 9 seconds. It's almost spammable. In fact, if you had 2 heroes in the radius, you would pretty much be guaranteed to just spam your W. And it only costs 50 mana. That's not too punishing, so that's cool. Maybe it becomes like an Arthas E ability. I think that's intriguing. It's also good against... Well, that doesn't actually help you against minions because this only procs on enemy heroes, so it doesn't help your wave clear in combination with primal aggression, but still an interesting thing to do in team fights, especially when you can do stuff like that, dive and cast it for free, basically. Let's see what else we got. Also, Essence Devour, gathering regen globes grants 10 essence. Kind of a secondary benefit to regen globes. I think that's going to be too slow and too passive and just require a little bit too much work to be good. But the first 3 talents here I think all have some potential depending upon what other things you pick and particularly how drag operates in team fights. For now, I'll just take Feeding Frenzy because I think it seems like the strongest. And now on to Dehaka's heroic abilities. First up, Isolation, 100 mana, 60-second cooldown. That's not too bad for heroic. Launch Biomass that hits the first enemy hero. Well, let's see what this looks like on the skill shot. Oh, he grew an arm. That's cool. He's way more symmetrical now. I totally dig it. That's pretty neat. This arm was gone before, if you noticed, and now it's there. So that skill shot, pretty long range. I guess normal range, moderate range, whatever you want to call it. Decent width on the skill shot as well, so that seems very reasonable to hit. Deals 439 damage. That's nothing major at level 20, but enough. Silences and slows the target by 30% for 3 seconds, and it only allows them to see a very short distance for 6 seconds. So I have not been on the receiving end of that yet. I don't know exactly how that looks, but reducing vision could be impactful if you don't know where your team's at. If like you're a Lieutenant Morales trying to heal somebody, can you click them? So that seems powerful, particularly against healers that are trying to target their team. But even like a damage dealer, if they can't see you and can't hit you, it could also have a big impact. And of course the silence and the slow, I guess, kind of makes that redundant because they can't heal or use abilities anyway. So maybe the vision reduction is really more beneficial as a kind of positioning, zoning tool. They don't know where their team went or how safe they are or what's around them. They don't know that a Thrall has snuck up and about to hit them in the face with Doomhammer, for instance. I want to see this in action against Arthas. Well, actually, we could probably just look at the target dummy. Oh, so that's interesting. There's a little bit of a delay when you cast this. You'll note it has a channel. That's going to make the skill shot much harder to hit. It's got travel time. It's got a delay. That's tough. I'm not as confident. I think it'll still be... People will still land it, but it makes it a little less reliable. Okay, let's try the next one. Adaptation, 85 mana, 90-second cooldowns, much longer cooldown. After 5 seconds, you heal for 60% of the damage you took over this period. So we grew an arm again, that's cool. So I think we activate it, and we're in the adaptation period, we're glowing, we're taking damage. And at the end, we healed for 1200, and that's cool. It shows you the HOT. You'll notice the green portion of our health bar. That's basically how much we're going to heal as soon as it goes off. So that's kind of neat. It's basically saying, like, come at me, bro. Do all the damage that you can. I'm going to heal it back anyway. So as long as you stay alive for that 5 seconds, It's kind of like an invulnerability for 5 seconds. Or not exactly an invulnerability. It's more like a 60% damage reduction for that 5 seconds. It's like a free hardened shield almost, right? Because hardened shield reduces 75% damage for a while. This basically is reducing 60% of that damage. It's just on a delayed basis. So you have to survive. As long as they don't kill you in that 5 second period, you're guaranteed to come back up. It's cool. I like it. It's got a long cooldown though, and I think 2 things will happen. You know, kind of like Divine Palm. When Charism Divine Palm someone, the enemy team just shuts off damage and doesn't kill them, and then they just wait till it's over, and then they kill him. The same kind of thing can happen. This has such a prominent visual indicator of the glowing that when Dehaka's glowing, I think people are probably just going to ignore him and focus damage somewhere else. And he won't heal much, and then they'll just wait till his adaptation is gone, and they'll start pounding him again. And as a tank, really you want people to attack you, not to attack somebody else. So discouraging them from engaging on you, I'm not sure that's going to be a very rewarding experience. Although that said, in the chaos of team fights, you're going to take incidental damage anyway, and sometimes if you're taking those AoE hits and stuff here and there, sometimes you have guaranteed damage if they pyroblast you or whatever. You can guarantee the heal with this, so maybe it's good. I need to play with it some to say. I think the cooldown's a little too long. I think the impact's a little too slow, and I think it gives control to the enemy team, which is risky. So maybe since Isolation's a little more active and controllable from your side, even though it might be less impactful in a team fight, it could be the better heroic here. Let's move on to level 13, starting with Swift Pursuit. Increase your movement speed by 20% while in a bush and 2 seconds after leaving it. So you can see the little speed lines on us here as we leave the bush. I'm not convinced that's an awesome talent at all. I guess it's good for ganking and body blocking if you pop in a bush and come out to hit somebody. But it feels like it just has such a limited application. The movement speed's only 20%. That's not that significant. I guess it might stack with the 15% movement speed here, which would be cool. Otherwise, I'm just not buying that this is all that great. It's good for running away, too, I guess. If you're running away through a bush, movement speed's nice, but hopefully you're not running away all that often. I don't love Swift Pursuit. So what about, let's just get there. Ferocious Stalker. Brush Stalker increases your movement speed by 60%, decaying over 3 seconds. So that is, that's our mount ability. So we're going to travel over here. We're going to come out. We're going to move really fast. That feels better to me than Ferocious Stalker, because you're basically getting the speed when you think it's going to matter, like if you're moving for a gank or trying to advance back into the field to catch up with your team, that kind of stuff. It seems like you're getting the 60% speed right when you need it, and 60% is more impactful than 20%, obviously, and really above the plateau of like 30 or 40% that really starts to matter. So Ferocious Stalker feels better. Thing is, it's not good for early game ganks when you're going to be like swapping lanes for ganks to kill isolated targets, so it might be too late to help there. I'm not sure I understand the advantages of movement speed in either instance. So let's see what's next at level 13. Let's get there. Whirling Dervish reduces the duration of silences, stuns, slows, and roots against your hero, while Darkstorm is active by 50%. This is 100% the top talent here. It's basically like Relentless, but only active during your W. But there are actually some synergies here with like Symbiosis, where you can keep your W active pretty often, so you're going to be very hard to stun and slow and silence and all that fun stuff. Whirling Dervish feels like far and away the strongest talent here to me. It's not always picked by every tank or character that has this kind of talent available, but it's good, and you usually kind of wish you could take it, but there's a better talent, and since there's not a better talent here for Dehaka, I think Whirling Dervish makes a lot of sense. Moving on to level 16. Paralyzing Enzymes. Drag slows enemies by 50% for 2 seconds after it ends. That's cool. 50% slow is really harsh. But the thing is, the duration on this is so long and the impact is so big given how much you can displace people, that I don't know that the 50% slow is... It kind of feels like overkill, right? Like, I think your team is going to be able to kill them anyway. So I don't know if it's all that helpful. It certainly can't hurt, but if they're not already going to get the kill by the time you've dragged for the full duration, I don't know if this is going to help. There's also elongated tongue, if we can get there. This increases your drag range by 20%. So, as I mentioned before, this is a very short range. I think it's going to be hard to get people with this, unless you're coming from a bush, right? But this increases the range by 20%. So let's set a marker here on the target dummy and see what this looks like, so we can compare. I want the arrow to be right at the end of the dummy. So that's close enough, right? You can see the arrows right there, almost where the red border on the dummy begins. And then we'll grab this, and so we gain like the full width of the dummy almost. I mean, from right before the dummy begins until right after the dummy begins. That does not feel like much, honestly. Not much at all. And I'll also note that it occurs to me while you're dragging that if you're at max range from the hero that you're dragging, for instance, I'll show you here with Arthas, or actually it doesn't matter. In other words, if you cast the ability at their max range, oh, it actually pulls them into you, kind of whiplashes them, doesn't it? Did it do that before we bought the talent? I feel like it did not. I feel like it did not whiplash them. Let's take a look and see, because I don't remember doing that. Oh, I guess it does. I guess it whiplashes them no matter what. So, I was going to say if you increase the range, you might just be farther away from the hero when the drag ends. But since it whiplashes them in, the range is all upside. I don't know if it's going to make a difference, though. Just you know, basically we gained from here, where my mouse is now, to like here. From here to here. I don't know how often that's going to make a difference. I think that might be a trap talent that feels good, but in reality doesn't really offer you all that much advantage. So what's next? Rapid regeneration. Burrow heals you for 666 health over 2 seconds, so more sustain. Let's take some damage and see this in action. Oh, gotta pick the talent first, folks. You gotta pick the talent first. Let's burrow. Yeah, nice little heal. Really didn't seem like that much, though, did it? Just, you know, 10% of your health bar, basically, or I guess a little more, 12, 13% of your health bar. Pretty minor, especially on a 20-second cooldown. I don't feel like that's that impactful. So maybe elongated tongue, paralyzing enzymes, both are a little better. I'm probably going to lean towards paralyzing enzymes for now. And then finally, level 20. Let's take a look at change is survival first, since we already have adaptation loaded up. This increases adaptation's healing to 125% of the damage received. So we go from 60% to 125%. So it's like a super hardened shield. In fact, here is hardened shield. That's cool. Again, though, the same things that applied to the previous comments about the heroic, I feel like they apply here as well. It's really nice healing, but it just gives your opponents so much control over when they attack you and how good your heroic is, that I feel like it might be great in lower skill games, but in high skill games, people are just going to ignore that and burn through you after it's over. Actually, let's pick Isolation and see the upgraded version of Isolation called Contagion. Isolation hits all heroes near the first target. Let's see if we can simulate that with a... Is there a visual? It's going to be difficult to simulate this with only Arthas, I think. It doesn't appear that there is a visual indicator of that range. But near typically is pretty forgiving. So there are a couple melee heroes, for instance, you might be able to impact all of them. That said, I guess it could kind of be like a Sylvanas Wailing Arrow with multiple silences, which is pretty cool. Multiple slows as well if people are trying to flee in a group is really nice. But I have a feeling it's not going to be the strongest talent on this tier.
Choose a talent.
As we get to look at the rest, up first is Apex Predator. Reduce Brush Talker's cooldown by 30 seconds and the cast time by 0.5. So right now it has a 40-second cooldown, and the cast time's a pretty long channel, really. So let's try this now. Toggle cooldowns back on. I don't know, the cast time didn't really feel that much faster to me, to be honest. But the cooldown is definitely shorter. I still don't know that I'm valuing the impact of this ability, particularly at level 20. I guess it will be good for like chasing people down in the late game, jumping to a bush ahead of them. And every 10 seconds gives you so much more flexibility. That's kind of nice. It's like Epic Mount almost for Falstad, similar kinds of applications maybe. So maybe it's good, but I really I think that the best talent at this tier is probably going to belong to Hardened Shield. Just such a good tanky talent. So many tanks take it anyway. Activates reduced damage by 75% for 4 seconds. In combination with all the other kind of annoying sustain stuff that Dehaka can do between burrowing and healing from his trait and even adaptation. I think this is just going to make you almost unkillable in team fights, almost regardless of how much essence you have or whether you pick adaptation or not. You'll have so many tools to stay alive and avoid damage that I think you can be very annoying in team fights, particularly if you synergize that with a W build that makes you harder to root and stun and reduces the cooldown as it's impacting heroes. I think you can kind of just run around forever with Dark Swarm on, just whacking people and staying alive and occasionally dragging somebody. I think that's going to be the role for Dehaka, especially with Hardened Shield and everything else he can do together. So, all right, that's my take on the Dehaka talents. I think I'm maybe got an idea for a build. I think it's Tissue Regeneration, Hero Stalker, and then Symbiosis, and then this is tough. I really can't get a feel for these, but for now I'm going to pick Adaptation just as kind of like a super sustain, you can never kill me build. Whirling Dervish. Here, Rapid Regeneration certainly fits the bill for even more sustain. It's kind of underwhelming on its own, but I think these are also underwhelming, so why not? Let's just go all in on becoming an unkillable Primal Zerg. So there you have it. That's my crazy you can't kill me Dehaka build. Tissue Regeneration, Hero Stalker, Symbiosis, Adaptation, Whirling Dervish, Rapid Regen, and Hardened Shield. This build is the one that probably benefits from the chaos of a team fight, getting in there, becoming unkillable, and just basically annoying everybody with Dark Swarm. So that's my look at Dehaka. I'm curious to take him into some games, get a more firm idea on a good talent build, and just see how good he is. I think he has the potential to be a pretty strong tank in certain hands. His kit is unique and impactful, two things that are very good in most metagames. So as long as the raw numbers are there as far as his health and his regen and his damage, I think he'll be very strong. If you have any questions about Dehaka talents, if I missed something, it's day one, forgive me, but feel free to call me out. I'm happy to address any mistakes or rethink how I'm thinking about Dehaka. So thanks so much for watching, and until next time, game on.